Well, good morning. Let's stand together as we sing this morning. Christ is my firm foundation. He's the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. Well, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. And so why would he fail now? He won't. He won't. And I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense, and I won't be going under, 'cause I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus, and he's never let me down. He's faithful through every season. So why would he fail now? He won't. No, he won't. And he won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. No, he won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Christ is my firm foundation. He's the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. Well, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. And so why would he fail now? He won't. No, he won't. And he won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. And the rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. The rain came, the wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. The rain came, the wind blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, 'cause I'm gonna make it through. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through, 'cause I'm standing strong on you. I'm gonna make it through, 'cause my house is built on, 'cause Christ is my firm foundation. He's the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. Well, I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would he fail now? He won't. No, he won't. And he won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. And no, he won't. Won't fail, no, he won't. Through every battle, through every heartbreak, through every circumstance, I believe that you are my portion, that you are my fortress, and you are my hiding place. And I believe you are the way and the truth and the life. I believe you are the way, you're the truth and the light. I believe through every blessing, through every promise, through every breath I take. I believe that you are provider, and you are protector, and you are the one I love. And I believe you are the way, you're the truth and the life. I believe you are the way and the truth and the life. I believe you are. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that I knew. All my fears and doubts, well, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I am here with you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. You meet me here today with mercies that I knew. All my fears and doubts, well, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I believe you are the way and the truth, you're the life. Oh, I believe you are the way and the truth, you're the light. I believe you are. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that I knew. All my fears and doubts, well, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I believe you are the way, you're the truth and the light. Oh, I believe you are the way and the truth, you're the light. are. I believe you are. I believe you are. Way you're the light, and I believe you are.
Who else would rocks cry out to worship? Whose glory taught the stars to shine? Perhaps creation longs to have the words to sing. This joy is mine. Thousand hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000 more. Who else would die for our redemption? Whose resurrection means I'll rise. There isn't time enough to sing of all you've done, but I have eternity to try. With 1,000 hallelujahs, we magnify your name. You alone deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. Lord Jesus, this song is forever yours. 1,000 hallelujahs and 1,000 more. Praise to the Lord, to the Lamb, to the King of heaven, praise. For he rose, now he reigns. We will sing forever praise. just thank you for that honor that we get the gift of crying out to you. That if we didn't do it, creation would do it. But God, you gave us that gift. We praise you. We thank you. It's in Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I was trying to see if this was working. Can you hear me? Okay. Hey, everybody. Happy long weekend. I am going to talk to you about some announcements we have to make today. The first one is about our second Saturday serve, which is coming up this week. Yesterday was the first Saturday. That means this is going to be the second Saturday. And it's time for us to serve. So let me tell you a little bit about our second Saturday serve project and partner for this week. So you guys might all know that our three serving priorities here at Restoration are food insecurity, foster care, and human trafficking. And so this is going to be one that is connected with our human trafficking ministry. This is a group from the U.S. Institute of Against Human Trafficking who goes and meets with some ladies who have been in a really difficult time. Without going into more detail about their specific situations, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be assembling some gift bags that this group can take to these women. And it's going to have just some encouragement in it, maybe some little notes that we can write to them, some little personal care items, maybe some like little bath bombs and lip balms and just different little stuff like that that can let them know that we're thinking of them and that these ladies have something to hand to these people when they go and meet with them and talk with them, pray with them, minister to them. So we're going to be putting together those bags. We're going to be praying over them, and we're going to be putting all that together. One other thing that they do often is they bring a big basket of snacks that they can pass out to some of the people that they're encountering in these places where they're meeting these ladies. And so what we're going to do is we're going to meet here at 10 o'clock downstairs on Saturday. And if everybody can bring with you, if you're able to this week, some individually wrapped snacks. So whether it's a box of little bags of chips, granola bars, little packs of cookies, crackers, anything like that we can put in this basket, and everything else is going to be provided. So we'll provide all the stuff that we're going to need to pack the bags. If everybody else would just bring with you individually wrapped snacks. So that is going to be our second Saturday serve project on Saturday. So can't wait to see you all there. I'm holding a Connect card. Anybody see one next to you? Guys, raise your hand. Anybody see one next to you? Okay. If you want to communicate with us in any way, you want to talk about prayer requests, you want to ask questions, you want to connect, just get connected here at Restoration a little bit more, you can fill that out and drop it in the offering box, which I see is still on the Connect desk in the back there, the connection desk. Janessa will be back there if anybody wants to chat with her after service. She'll be at the connection desk. Charlie is going to be in our prayer room today, I believe, in the back over here if anybody wants to pray or have just some time in prayer after service or during service, any of that time. And that's just about it for today. So our kids can head down to Restoration Kids with Miss Denise, and everybody else stand up and say hi to the folks that are around you here.
Good morning. Good morning. Sorry, we didn't practice our transition, and but thank you to my lovely assistant. She did a great job, didn't she? Yeah. So thank you for that. Glad you're here this morning, and I am glad that we get to start this series together. And I hope that I know it's Labor Day weekend. I know that a lot of people it's kind of like time to check out a little bit, and I understand that. For me, 3-day weekend, it's fantastic. So for all of us, now that it's Labor Day, it's time to put the white clothes away. Okay, they'll come back out Memorial Day. We'll get ready for that. But right now, just go ahead and put them away. Store them until the spring. For students, I guess you guys get a few days off. Teachers, you get a few days off. That's great. For parents, you get more days on, so you're welcome. And so, anyways, glad we get to spend this time together. I'm glad you're here for this one, because we're going to start a new series, and we're going to kind of start a foundational piece of this. And we're going to look at this sermon that Jesus preaches. It's the greatest sermon of all time. It's like the biggest sermon he preaches, the most comprehensive, most complex, most confounding sermon that he preaches. And we're going to look at that for the next few weeks. And we're just going to start it today. We're going to get a little bit into it, but I'm going to promise you it's going to take us a minute to get through it. Because to understand what he talks about, it is so deep and so powerful. But think about it for just a quick second. Now, if you know anything about me, like I do teach about communication. That's actually something I teach on. I teach here at the college. I take some classes on. I'm doing different things with communication right now. That's actually the other job that I have, mostly deals in communication. And there's something that when you're going to present something, if you were to create something and present it to an audience, there's a really important part of communication that you have to think about. So this is just going to be really basic, very elementary. And guys, this is free. What you're about to learn right now, this is free, okay? But communication, I don't know if you know what communication is or what that study actually involves. It actually is a pretty rare, recent study that started about in the early 1900s, about 1908. A group of people split off from an English department at Yale University, and they decided they should do their own study just on the form of communication, what communication is, how it works. And really what they came up with, and the term we use for this still, is communication is the idea of sharing or transmitting information from one person to another, or what we call the receiver, okay? So you have the receiver over here, and you have the transmitter here. Okay, so follow me for just a second. I know this is not what you thought you were coming to today, but you have a transmitter and it's transmitted and there's a receiver over here. Now the receiver is the one that takes in the information. That's their job. They listen, they take in, and the goal is that you are going to create a message between you and them. And the message is something that you want to share and you want to get across. But whenever you create a speech, whenever you create any form of communication, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, whether it's an email, whether it's a text message, no matter what communication you're creating, the thing that you have in mind, or most people have in mind, or should be what's in your mind, is that you're thinking about how will the receiver receive this information? Who is the intended target of this information? Right? Sometimes when you text a certain person, you text them differently than you text other people. Sometimes when you email certain people, you email them differently than you email other people, right? You probably if you text your boss, you probably text them differently than you text your spouse. Or you probably text them differently than you text your kids, or whatever it is. You probably text people differently based on your relationship with them because you know that they're a different receiver of the information. But the goal is that you're trying to define a target and say, that's my target audience. That's who I want to hear this. And the goal out of that receiver is that you transmit something that's so powerful and is so targeted to them that they eventually elicit a response. All communication is done in order to gain a response from the receiver of the information. You want them to receive it and respond to it, okay? Now let me give you an example real quick. A couple years ago, I was teaching a public speaking class right here at the college. If you know anything about the college here, it's mostly a lot of students are here to study church ministry. A lot of kids are here from conservative households. A lot of people kind of come from that kind of background. But there's also some students that don't, right? They come from other places. Maybe they come from homes that are not Christian households, maybe not as conservative. Maybe they come from inner city places. Most of them come here to play sports. Now, remember, I was explaining this to some of my public speaking students. I was saying, I want you to think about the receiver of your information. How do you connect with them as you share? And so I had one student who said, well, can I share in one of my speeches? Can I just do my testimony? Now, usually, I'm going to be honest, this is usually a cop-out.
just so you know. Like usually it's like, well, okay, so you're going to do your testimony. We all know that that's going to be a speech that's pretty easy for you. And how can you grade somebody badly on their testimony? Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? It's really hard to give a bad grade and be like, that was a lame testimony. You did a bad job. F for your testimony, right? Like you can't do that. So I feel like it's always like a little bit of a spot that I'm stuck in as a grader and as the professor, right? So I was told him, I said, you can do your testimony. It's fine. And he comes in, and I kid you not, it was something I did not expect. He gets up and he starts talking about, he said, it was the worst day of my life. It was the day that changed everything. And he said, I'm at a party. And guys, I didn't know this, and if you know what this is, that's great. And he was like, I was at this party, and there were all these girls there, and I was trying to be cool. And so they handed me a Mega Blunt. And I was like, I'm not sure what we're talking about now. And he looked at me, he's like, you guys know what a Mega Blunt is? And I shook my head no, because I did not know what a Mega Blunt was. Now, all the guys in the back of the room that had come for sports, especially here at the college, and did not come from conservative households, they were like, oh, yeah. And he looked at me, he was like, well, of course you don't know what it is. And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. And he was like, it's like when you get a joint, when you get so much weed that you don't know how to take it all in, so you make it into like not just one blunt, but like a big blunt, and then you smoke it all, you hotbox it into your system, and then like you're high, but not just high, like you're high as a kite, and you can't think straight, and it takes you days to come back down off this high. He was like, that's the kind of blunt I had. I was like, I did not see this coming. This is not what I expected from my public speaking class at Trinity College of Florida. Now, what was interesting is he told his testimony, and I watched as some people in the room were 100% with him. As he then talked about how that ruined him, how that messed him up so bad that he decided, I'm never doing that again, how I'm going to sober up at the ripe age of 18, and how I'm going to turn my life around. And I watched his students start to connect with him saying, like, yeah, we get that. Now, I did not. And afterwards, I came to him, I was like, hey, I didn't expect you to start off with a Mega Blunt story. And he was like, yeah, man. But he actually said to me, he said, but you told me that I should speak to my audience. You told me that I should speak to the receiver. And he said, and you weren't my target audience. He was right. I wasn't. Who needed to hear his testimony? Was it me or was it somebody else? I wasn't his target audience. And so he gave it to the receivers, and they responded. I watched them respond. Now, if you think about this for a second, Jesus is about to give the biggest sermon of his life. I mean, he's about to give this massive teaching. Now, we can argue or we can debate about if this all happened at once. I would actually argue that it probably did happen at once. But some people, they wonder, did Jesus do this one teaching just all at once, or did he kind of do it in pieces and then Matthew put it together as one big sermon? Doesn't really matter. My belief is that he probably did do this almost all at once, and then he also probably did the same speech many, many times. There wasn't like Twitter, there wasn't a blog post, he didn't have a newspaper. He probably had to go town to town and say the same thing over and over again. He was probably sick of it. It was like a stump speech. But this is what he launches into. And when he comes into the world, when he comes into Rome as this person who is now going to be bringing a kingdom of heaven to earth, he comes in and he declares, the kingdom of heaven is here. And he's saying there's a difference between the empire of Rome at this time and the kingdom of heaven. He's saying that place that is Rome, that's not what I'm here to bring in. I'm here to usher in a kingdom, and the kingdom looks different than what you're used to. It's a place where your pain is made perfect. It's a place where all the brokenness is now made into beauty. It's a place where all the wrongs are made right. That's what the kingdom looks like. And the kingdom is both here right now in your midst and not yet. It's both right now where you are and it's still to come. That's the beauty of this kingdom. He's trying to explain it to people. He wants people to know about it. But the first thing you have to start off with when you're about to get up and present this to everybody around you, you have to think, but who's my target audience? Who is a part of this kingdom? Who gets to be in this version of the kingdom? They may not be people who want to be part of an empire. They may not be people who are like the people that everybody else wants. I wanted to find who my target audience is. And so he does that at the beginning of his sermon. He actually targets, he says exactly who he wants. If you have a Bible, I would love it if you would turn there. It's Matthew chapter 5. We're going to start right at the top of Matthew chapter 5. And again, the Sermon on the Mount really kind of goes from Matthew 5 to about Matthew 7. And we're going to go through all of that in the next few weeks. And it's going to go for, again, a minute, because to understand this and to really get the depth of it, it's going to take some work. Matthew chapter 5, Jesus launches in. Now, I'm going to read it once because I want us to kind of just read it. You've probably heard this part before. This is what's sometimes called the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes is just simply from the Latin word of what we see here for the word blessed, but it's kind of just the same idea. It doesn't have anything to do with attitudes, by the way. It's not like an actual attitude, okay? And so what it says is in Matthew chapter 5, I want to read through it one time, and we're going to go through it really simply, and then we're going to come back through and kind of go through it and dive a little deeper into it, okay? So it says this right off the bat. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and he sat down. Okay, so he goes up to a mountainside. Some people would argue that for a rabbi to sit down, that means that they were humbling themselves in front of their crowd. Maybe that's true. Some people argue that. The other thing, though, that is interesting is anytime a teacher, somebody who's in front of people is teaching and they sit down, you know it's going to be a long teaching. So his disciples came to him and he began to teach them while sitting down. So here comes the Beatitudes. Here comes the next part, okay? You've probably heard these before if you've been around church. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is that kingdom of heaven." Then he says, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way, they persecute the prophets who were before you." Okay, so that's the section, okay? That's where we start the section. Now, first, I want to just talk about there's two things that happen if you notice this. Matthew lays this out incredibly. Matthew is just a literary genius. Like it's just remarkable how he writes certain things. In this section, he's actually writing two sections. So there's 8 Beatitudes, 8 blesseds, and you notice that right off the bat. In those, they're actually designed to be 2 and 2. The first, 2 sections, like a 4 and 4. The first section is actually, both sections are exactly in half. He does 36 words per section, the first 4 and the second 4. And he lays them out in a way where the first 4 are all start with the same Greek letter, phi. You see that word blessed at the beginning. And then what he does is he actually designs it so the first 4 are more of like who Jesus is looking for as far as a target audience, who will be there. But the second half are more like a virtue system. Like, what do you believe about that? It's very interesting the way he breaks it down. But notice that every single one of them doesn't just have a statement about who, but then it has a second statement about how. So it says, blessed is this person, and then how they will be blessed. Do you see that? So it gives both parts. This is who, and this is how. Now, I want us to talk about who and how and understand all that stuff, but I want us to start with just the who, because I actually think if you are like me, and we're going to talk about this for a while today, the word blessed, first of all, feels very off-putting if we really think about it. It doesn't seem like the right word, does it? Okay, so the Greek word here, you notice it right at the beginning of everything that you see there, is the word makarios. Makarios is the Greek word for blessed. And makarios, it doesn't mean blessed in the way we think of very often. But it is like it's actually something you would like exclaim at somebody. So you would actually like yell it, or it was like almost like a greeting. It wasn't used as something where we would just say like, I'm #blessed. It was like you'd say it to somebody at the beginning of a statement. In fact, it would be most similar to like congratulations. Like you'd say something like that to somebody. Congratulations, makarios. That's how you're supposed to present this. And it does mean happy, but not in the American sense, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But it's interesting because I don't know if I was putting together a list of things, if I would say this is who is blessed. I think you would probably agree with me. This seems upside down. Would you say that the people who are blessed are the poor in spirit? Would you say that the people who are happy and fortunate, congratulations, you're meek, right? Would you say that that's something that you're looking forward to? Congratulations, you should be so happy that you're mourning. It's so backwards. We don't fully understand it. But the way that Jesus is doing this is brilliant, but it also is something that really, I think, we become numb to. And we've probably heard it too many times to understand really the countercultural way that Jesus is teaching here. And he comes and he says, blessed are you. Now, for us, I think this, first of all, takes just the opposite term. Our culture does not believe this is what blessed looks like. Does it? If you look at the culture around us, do you think that meekness is known for, like, are people that are meek known for being people who are blessed? No, usually they're considered the opposite. People who are mourning, are they considered blessed? Absolutely not. I would say we actually would be a little bit different than, like, we would probably agree with more the empire of Rome than we agree with, we come from the same systems, value systems. We probably agree with that a little bit more. In 200 BC, there was a Jewish wisdom writing called the Sirach. And the Sirach was designed as a wisdom writing by some rabbis. And the Sirach was written to give people wisdom on how to live. And what's interesting is most Jews at this time when Jesus is living, they were living by the Sirach. They were living by the Sirach writing. Let me read to you what the Sirach says and how it's described in the Sirach. This is what blessed looks like. It says this in the Sirach, chapter 25, verses 7 through 11. Again, it's about 200 years before Jesus was written. It said, I can think of 9 who I would call blessed, and a 10th my tongue proclaims. Now, these are who he says are blessed. I want you to compare and contrast this with what you see in Matthew chapter 5, okay? First, he starts with a man who can rejoice in his children. So first of all, it's a man, and he's very clear about that. Women, you don't really get the chance to rejoice here. You're not blessed, okay? Men are blessed, and men are blessed because they have children. Like, things have gone well for them as far as what would be culturally acceptable at this time. They have been blessed with children. So this is what blessed looks like. Then he says, a man who lives to see the downfall of his foes. So one who's better, one who is conquered, one who's the winner. That's who we're rooting for. That's who the blessed people are. Then he says, happy is the man who lives with a sensible wife. I'm not going to comment on that, but I'm just saying that's what he says. Blessed is the man who lives with a sensible wife, and the one who does not plow with ox and ass together, because we all hate doing that, right? I think we can all agree. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. Plow with both of them. That's ridiculous. Happy is the one who does not sin with the tongue, and the one who has not served an inferior. Like the one who goes to work and, like, they don't have to be a Gen Xer working for, like, a millennial, that kind of thing, right? Because that's ridiculous. Blessed is the man who didn't have to do that. Blessed is the one who gets to work at their pay at the pay that they deserve, at their station in life, get everything that they think that they deserve in life. Happy is the one, and again, this is the same word, happy or blessed. Happy is the one who finds a friend, not the lonely, not the outcast, the one who has friends, and who speaks to attentive listeners, like the one who captivates a room, not the meek, the one who comes in and suddenly everybody wants to talk to them, the center of the party, that person. Blessed are they. And he says, how great is the one who finds wisdom, but none is superior to the one who fears the Lord, and the fear of the Lord surpasses everything. So at the end, we get a little bit of the fear of the Lord. But we see in this Beatitudes, the wisdom writing of the day, said that very clearly, you are blessed if you are almost exactly what I would say the American ideal is, right? You're like well-spoken, you got a lot of friends, everything's going well for you, you're at the job you want, you're at the station in life that you want, you have everything that you've worked so hard for. You are now blessed because you've gotten all those things. And I don't think this just stops with their culture. I think this is deeply embedded in our culture today. I think it's even embedded in our church culture today. If you've ever read, there's a great book by Kate Bowers called Blessed, and it's about the prosperity gospel and its movement here in America. But I think we all kind of agree that there's a part of us that really believes that if I do the right things, I get the right things, like good, I do good and God does good, and therefore I should do the right things so that God will do good for me. And that's what we think blessed looks like. We think blessed looks like it's always up and to the right. Everything is going better and better. Our lives are perpetually getting better than where they were. We should make more money than we did last year. We should have more than we had last time. We should always be moving towards a better future. That's what blessed looks like in our culture. In our churches, we really operate the same way. You see it all the time. We believe that this is kind of the way God works. That's why we come to church. So many people, this is actually, if I'm being honest with you, this is why people come to church when they're in crisis mode. I really believe this. Sometimes it's almost like this, like, well, I better go get right with God so he'll do what I need him to do to get me out of this divorce, to get me out of this disease, to get me out of this disappointment, whatever it is. I better get right with God for a little bit so that works out. Because we kind of believe that that's what blessed looks like. We'll be blessed if that happens. Everything's going to get better. And it's even worse. I think it's even not just from our culture, not just to our churches, but even to our own character. If you think about this, we have this idea that that's what blessed looks like. We have this idea this is what blessed should look like. And we start to fill up churches. We start to fill up people around us. If you think about this, like just for a second, think about this, what Jesus is saying there. Would you want, and I'm not trying to be mean here, I'm just saying, would you want a church full of the people that he just described? Like, being honest. Does the American church, do we want a church full of the people he described? Because it's interesting, Jesus is saying those are people who will get the kingdom, but I would say they're not even the people that the church wants. Jesus wants them in his kingdom, but the church doesn't want them in their church. I mean, would you want a neighborhood full of these people living next to you that are poor, that are mourning, that are meek? Like, would you want that? It almost feels like that's not the winning crowd. I think it seeps to our character. Richard Rohr writes about this quite a bit. If you know Richard Rohr, he's a friar. And I don't always agree with Richard Rohr, don't get me wrong, but he's a Catholic priest who is out of the Franciscan line. And he wrote about this thing called the winner's script. He says, we're born into the idea of the winner's script. That from the time you were young, I'll give you this is the quick synopsis I could give you, but the winner's script demands that we raise ourselves up out of nothing and make ourselves into something, which the world aspires and that it envies. Thus, life becomes a series of straining for vocational accomplishments that will move us towards acceptance and worth in the eyes of those around us. And I think we're born into that. I do think that winner's script is somewhere within us, and we think that's what blessed looks like. And so we even have that deep within us. But I would challenge that what Jesus is saying here is the exact opposite. Let's walk through it again, because I want you to look at who, and then we're going to look at how they're blessed. So remember, verse 3. We'll start back in verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Now, there's actually two different words in Greek for poor. And this one is like the lowest form. This one's the word ptochos. And ptochos actually is a word that means like the lowest form of poor. In fact, the word actually means to be forced into begging. That's what it means. Like, it's full hand to mouth. You have nothing of your own. You are forced into begging. It's a level of poverty that you and I will never really understand in a country like this. We just will never fully get this. But this is a very deep level of poverty. Because as Dallas Willard, he once wrote, that this type of poor of spirit means that they have nothing to offer you. We don't really love people who have nothing to offer us. We like people who we scratch their back, they scratch ours. We help them out, they help us out. We give to their stuff, they give to our stuff. That's how we like symbiotic relationships. What he's saying here is these people have nothing to offer in return. Blessed are that kind of poor in spirit. And he's not just talking about poor. That's kind of interesting. Theologians go back and forth on this, but there really is, he is talking about actually like physically, financially poor, at the same time as talking about those who are spiritually bankrupt. Both are happening at the same time. He's saying, but theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Notice theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? It is. But then the next one says, blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Those people that are suffering the loss of a marriage, the people who have a miscarriage, the people who are still dealing with grief and loss and mourning over somebody that they have loved and lost. Blessed are they. Happy they should be because they're going to be comforted. And he says, blessed are the meek. And this isn't a meek like we think of Americanized meek, which means like it's like restrained power is what I've heard it described as, is like I have all this authority, but I'm restraining myself. That's not what he's talking about here. He's actually it is more like a word like weak. Blessed are those that just don't have a lot of facility of their own. They are weak, they are meek, and they are going to inherit the earth. Remember, at this time, Jesus is talking to people who have been in Rome. They are oppressed. They are probably taxed about 90% of their income. So again, I know taxes are not great, but think about that. 90% of your income is going out to Rome, to the state that you're a part of, and to the church that you're a part of. You are fully under oppression. You have nothing of your own. You're highly in debt. You don't own anything. You are now under oppression. What he's saying, that type of meek. You're going to inherit the same earth that right now is taking advantage of you. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. We talked about this last week. If you weren't here for that, I would encourage you to go back and listen, because we need to understand that there's a righteousness here. And what he's saying is those people who want to do right, and they want to know what right is, and they want to have a right relationship with God, with mankind, and with the earth, that kind of thing. If you're hungering for that, you're thirsting for that, you're begging for that, then you're going to be filled. And not just filled, by the way, this word actually means like you're going to be stuffed, like to the gills, by the way. Then it says, blessed are the merciful. Now this kind of flips right here. We flip in verse 7 to more like virtues, okay? Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. We're going to spend some time on that later on in the sermon, because there's a lot that comes up about peacemaking. But it's interesting because he says the peacemakers, when he says they will be called children of God, it's actually like a little bit of a euphemism that happens in the culture in Greek. And what he's saying is they are the ones who will bear the image of God. Like they will, you know how you say like your kid, like if you see a kid that looks just like their parents, you say like they're the spitting image of their parents, right? That kind of thing. That's what he's saying is like you're going to look just like, that's going to be the most like God you can look. The peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, I don't know about you, that list looks different than I would expect. And the question is, how can that group be happy? How can that group be considered blessed? That just doesn't seem like a group that would be happy in our culture. And let's face it, in our culture, happiness is like the thing that we want. It's like what we pursue more than anything else. Think about if you've ever looked at anything that is in American writing, but especially the Declaration of Independence, right? Like the thing that has the treasure map on the back that Nicolas Cage uses, that type of thing. If you pull up the Declaration of Independence and you look at it, it says right on the beginning, right? We all know the phrase that the inalienable rights that we will have the rights to pursue what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's right there. Like that's what we've been built on. As a liberal society, we've been built on the idea that we should be able to go after it. And so they gave us capitalism, they gave us liberalism, they gave us consumerism, they gave us all these tools to go pursue happiness. And they said, now we've done it for you. Now you're in a capitalist society, you're in a consumer society, you're in an individualistic society, you're in a liberal society. Go pursue that, go get it. And now it's your turn to go pursue happiness. And what's fascinating is, I would say right now, if you look at studies of mental health in America, we're further away from happiness than we've ever been, although we have more resources than we've ever had. We have more prosperity, we have more wealth, we have more education, we have more health than we've ever had in the history of America or any country on the face of the earth. Yet, we are less happy than we've ever been. We're pursuing it. There's actually sociology that would tell you that the more you pursue happiness, the less likely you are to find it. Because I think one of the problems is we have a hard time pursuing happiness because we don't know what happiness is. We actually don't know how to define it anymore. And I think one of the problems is what I see right now in our culture is we think that happiness is an internal response to an external stimuli. So we think that happiness is an internal response to an external stimuli. So something good happens to you and it makes you happy, right? Something makes you happy. It forces happiness upon you, right? And it's actually where the word happiness comes from in a way. So you get the word happen or happenstance, happening. All those words are the same word as happiness. It just kind of happens to you. And you see that happen in our culture right now. We just have happiness kind of sneak up on us, and something happens outside of us, and it makes us feel a certain way, which is really, really dangerous in so many ways. I can't tell you, and just to be honest, I would say the younger the generation, the more we're seeing this, but I'm not saying it's not true of all of us across the board. But I've had talks with people who are younger than me, people that I love very much, and they've told me, like, literally, they're dealing with depression, they're dealing with mental illness, and I'm not saying that stuff is not real. Do not get me wrong. I believe that stuff is real. I think it's actually heavier now because we've tried to pursue happiness so hard and not found it, that it is becoming more and more real. But she was dealing with depression and all that stuff, and I'll never forget it. Like, I've had this talk with multiple people, but one person specifically who was like, oh my goodness, that song, there was a song we were talking about. That song, it was a pop song by an artist. If that song had not come out, I don't think I'd be alive right now. And I was like, okay. And I kind of was like, but like, we're talking like hyperbolically, right? Like, we're just kind of spitballing here. And she was like, no, I'm serious. If that song had not come out, I don't think I'd be alive right now. I was like, but so what if that song never came out? What if that artist didn't do that? Now, I'm not saying that that person would have actually gone to massive extremes or whatever. I'm just saying, do you hear what's happening in that? Do you hear how most of us talk about things, actually? Like, I just need this to happen. Like, I just need that person to be kind to me. I just need that test to be canceled. I just need my boss to give me that raise. I just need another day off. And if I get those things, whatever it is, then suddenly I will be happy. Do you hear that? But that's external stimuli eliciting an internal response. I'm not sure that's what happiness is supposed to look like. I'm not sure that's all happiness is. I don't think that's what Jesus is talking about. Because if you notice the list of things he gave us, those aren't necessarily externally happy things that are making us happy. Happy are those who mourn? I don't think so. That's not like a good external stimuli. How is that possible? I think we have to reframe what we look at in happiness. And when we see that, here's the problem, is when external stimuli is all there is, and that's all that we have to work off of for us to be happy, and that's the only way we will feel this internal response of happiness is through external stimuli. The problem is, at some level, you're not in control of what happens, right? Bad things can happen. Bad things will happen. With or without you, they're going to happen, and suddenly now your happiness is drained because you were like, well, I needed that thing out there to work out for me. And what we start to do, here's a couple quick things that I see a lot in our culture that we go to right away. There's a lot of things, and actually there's a great book that I was reading just recently. I haven't finished it, but it's called Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. If you know Brene Brown, she's brilliant. It's a great book on kind of what we do with these things, how we deal with things when we feel disappointment. Anyways, a couple of things I see right off the bat is we go to, first of all, comparison. Comparison is one of the things that is always going to be the thief of joy. One sociologist called it the hedonistic treadmill. So you're always pursuing happiness and you're never going to get there. The hedonistic treadmill, that you're constantly pursuing happiness, but with comparison, you're always going to fall flat. And we could talk for, I don't know, the next 8 to 10 days about it, specifically just in social media and what social media is doing to us, of the comparison and the thief of joy that will always be. It will always be a thief, because you're always going to be under the tyranny of what other people think about you, and you're trying to live up to their unrealistic expectations. Because let's face it, social media is everybody's highlight reel, and you're just living in your deleted scenes, right? So you're like living in the parts that you're like, I don't want anybody to know about this, and everybody else is posting their highlight reel over and over again, right? And it's so hard for us because we've been given these tools as a liberal culture to think that we should be able to do this and pursue happiness. We've also been given consumerism. We've been given consumerism. How many of you know about retail therapy, right? That's the idea, is that we go out, and so if we don't like where we're at right now, we'll go buy the thing that will make us happy, and therefore we'll make happiness happen, and we'll go into debt, or we'll just spend a lot of money on trying to get there. That's our source. As Neil Postman writes in his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, he says, most often advertisements tell us more about what's wrong with us than about what's right with the product. And that's true. If you watch these, most of them are telling us what's wrong with us, not what's right with the product. And in consumerism, we start to think that somehow we're going to be right. It is fascinating if you think about it. Have you ever been to another country? Have you ever been to a developing country? Have you ever spent time for me, I've spent a lot of time in Haiti. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. Steve and I went down to Honduras. We have a sister church in Honduras. And it is fascinating. If you ever take a mission trip there, and we went and we watched people, we have a sister church there, we watched them pack the place. and they all are worshiping at the top of their lungs, and it's beautiful to watch. They have about 50 kids who get together behind the church, and they gather in this big yard, and people from this little tiny town, they all come together in this little church that is our sister church, and they worship every Sunday. And we went and watched them. We got to be a part of the building dedication. We watched them as they dedicated this building, and it's nothing like an American building, but it's beautiful for what they have. And you watch them worship, and they don't have AC, and they don't have all the modern conveniences. They don't have a great sound system or video, and they're loving what they're doing. And it's amazing how many people, you hear it right away, every American, right? First thing you say is, it's amazing how happy they are considering they have so little. Is it amazing? I would actually say maybe they're happier, not because they don't have as much stuff, but because they have less ideology. Maybe it's just the ideology they've been taught is better. That happiness is not external stimuli and an internal response. It's something that happens that's a lot deeper than that. And one of the things we're going to find in this life that Jesus, I think, is talking about is you're going to find continual disappointment. You're going to find perpetual disappointment with this life. If you're pursuing happiness, I hate to break it to you, but this life, it's a broken world. That's what he's talking about in this sermon, is that I'm bringing a kingdom where everything will be made right, but here's the deal. You're in the middle of what is not right. You're in the not yet part still. Yes, the kingdom is both then and now, and the now, it's not perfect still. How many people came to Jesus to get healed? And they would come and they would be poor, and guess what? Jesus would bless them, and they would leave, and guess what? They were still poor, but they were blessed. How many people came to see Jesus and they were oppressed under Rome? They came to see him, and he would send them away after blessing them, and he would bless them, and they would leave, and they would still be oppressed, but they were also blessed. You see what's happening? It's not just about happiness. Maybe there's something deeper than this. I was listening to, I don't know if anybody in this room listens to this. It's fine if you don't, but I'll just have a confession to make that I listen to NPR. And I'm sorry to say that in public, but I listen to NPR. I love This American Life. I don't know if you ever listened to This American Life. I love it. And I was listening to This American Life this last week, and it was very interesting. There was a woman who was talking about her journey. She's, of course, not a Christian woman, has no background or basis in Christianity. She was talking about coming off of her anti-anxiety meds. She was in a very bad place with her depression, her anxiety, and she started to feel numb to the world. So she started to back off, just a little bit at a time, that medicine, until she could start to feel the world around her. And she said, what I remember was I started feeling things and actually like becoming less numb to the world. She said, I actually remember there was a moment in my life where I felt happy for the first time in like forever. It was weird. Like I felt happy. But she said, it was gone so fast. She said, I went to my therapist, and I remember, this is just so interesting. She said, I went to my therapist, and she said, and my therapist said, yeah, you're probably always going to deal with this because happiness is fleeting. And she said, what I want you to do is reframe your life and think about not can I find happiness in my life, but how can my life be a source of happiness? How can it be meaningful? What if your life wasn't about being happy all the time? What if it was about being meaningful? If your life was meaningful, would that bring you happiness? What if your life wasn't about being happy? What if it was about being impactful? What if you had an impact on your community, on the people around you, on your neighbors, on the kids in your school, on the friends around you? What if you had an impact like that? What if your life, your job, your mission, what if that had impact? Wouldn't that make you happy? This is why I tell people when you come through the identity class, and I hope you do, when you come through the identity class, we talk about calling, right? And what calling looks like on your life, that I believe Jesus has given every one of us a calling on our life. And I warn every single person, calling will not always make you happy. It won't. But it will make you fulfilled. It will make your life impacting. It will make a lasting legacy. That's what it's going to do. That's what this looks like if we allow it. I love Derwin Gray. Dr. Derwin Gray just recently wrote a book about the Beatitudes. And if you know Derwin Gray, he was in the NFL for about 8 years, something like that. Played for the Steelers. He was, if you ever, now this is old school, maybe you don't know this reference. If you were in church like years ago, there was a video that went around called the evangelism linebacker. Does anybody remember this? The evangelism linebacker, he was the star of that. Anyways, apparently after he got out of the NFL, he decided to go to school, got his master's in divinity, then a doctorate in divinity, and planted a church. And he just recently wrote this book about the good life, and it's about the Beatitudes. And I love what he said. He said, happiness is not about the world making good things for me. It's about making me good for the world. What if your life was impacting? What if your life was important? What if your life was powerful? What if your life was more than just you pursuing happiness every day? Wouldn't that make you happy? I hate to speak to this because I'm not an expert in this, but I will say in my other job, I work a lot in the disability community. A lot of people that have severe disabilities and their families. And I read a study the other day that was fascinating to me that said that families, all people in that family, families that have one member with a severe disability, everybody in that family is actually happier. Like studies show, people in that family are happier because they have somebody with a disability in their family. Now, would you say that is because life got easier for them? Absolutely not. You watch people and you're like, I don't know how you do it on a daily basis. And I am so amazed and so impressed with people that do this every single day, whether it's severe disability of intellectual forms or physical forms, whatever it is, you're amazed at how they keep going. Is their life easier? No. But is their life better? Is it impacting? Does it have meaning? Does it have value? Absolutely. And they are actually considered happier people because of a more difficult circumstance. See, that's what I love about what Jesus is doing here. And he's talking about this in a way where he's saying, this is why I want you to see this. This is how you're going to be blessed. It's not the way you expect it. It's not the Americanized version of it. It's a different version. It's not Rome's version. It's not an empire version. This is only in the kingdom, and it's in the kingdom that is both now and not yet. Because there's still going to be times where you're going to suffer disappointment. There's still times where you're going to mourn, you're going to grieve, you're going to be poor of spirit. You are going to have difficult times in this life because the kingdom is still not fully here. But in the midst of it, I offer you blessing. And it gives you blessing today, and it gives you hope for the future. You get blessing for now and hope for later. I love that he lays this out. And for many of us, I think when we look at this, we start to see how Jesus is defining to us who he wants in this kingdom and how he wants them to be perceived. Who he wants and how he wants them to be perceived. And he's giving that to us. And here's what I love about it. If I'm being honest with you, Jesus could have come and he could have only gone for the best and the brightest. He could have gone for those that have everything together because that's what Rome was already doing. He could have gone for the powerful, the rich, the people with prestige, people that had the positions at the highest levels. But Jesus doesn't come and want those people. In fact, he comes and when he decides who his target audience is, it's the least. It's the lowest. It's the broken. And here's why I love that is because I believe he's doing that because all of us can relate to that. Very few of us can relate to being at the top. If you are here today and you're like, no, everything in my life is perfect and it's all going great, good for you. Send me an email about that. I'd love to hear how that feels. Right? Or like take somebody else out to lunch because they deserve it or whatever. If that's your life, great. But if you're like, I don't know, everybody else, this is a message for you. You are the target audience. I took a few minutes yesterday and I sat down with this and I wanted to do just an exercise. I'm going to warn you, this is not scripture. This is not, as a biblical scholar, I know limited Greek. I'm not Eugene Peterson. I'm not somebody who can create a translation. But I wanted to go through this and think about it in my own terms. And think about how Jesus, I believe, if he was standing in front of us today, what this would mean to us. And so I wrote this out in my own terms. Again, this is the KSV. This is the Kevin Stamper version. This is not official. Do not take this home and say that this is scripture or anything like it. But I want you to I want to read this to you because this is what I think Jesus would be saying to us today if he was standing here giving us this same message and inviting us into his kingdom. Happy are the down and out in their finances and their souls. The unemployed, the underemployed, those who can't seem to get ahead, those who have been priced out of the market, those without a savings account or health insurance, as well as those who are spiritually threadbare, who have little to offer because they are in the kingdom of God. Happy are those who are sad. They're grieving the death of a loved one, the failure of a marriage, another miscarriage, those who deeply feel the pain of despair, depression, disappointment, those who feel they're perpetually in a state of discouragement. Because one day God himself will be the shoulder you cry on, the one you confide in, and the one who comforts you. Happy are the quiet, the shy, the socially awkward, the uncool, the badly dressed, those who hate the way their body looks, the people with like 6 Instagram likes per post. Moreover, over the woman who's objectified, the minority who's oppressed, the person with special needs who is ostracized. Because one day they will be free from the tyranny of what others think about them. Their biases, their prejudice will have no place in the kingdom to come, and you will take up your role as kings, queens, princes, and princesses who collaborate with God to rule the earth and subdue it. Happy are the broken, those who just can't get it together. The addict, the mentally unstable, the physically imperfect, those who long for a world that is good, but whose circumstances look like everything that's wrong, because one day their brokenness will be made so beautiful and their emptiness so bountiful that they won't know where to put it all. Happy is the little guy, the people who get stopped on, the people who get passed over, the one who gets put down, yet they fight meanness with mercy over and over again, because one day they'll get their grace repaid with interest. Happy are those who want nothing to do with violence against another image bearer of God, and those who pursue peace at all cost. Those who know that the true source of peace and prosperity does not come from a gun or an army, and they are willing to personally do the hard work of pursuing peace first and foremost. One day, everybody will recognize that they are the most like God. Happy are all of the Christians who live in a post-Christian culture that is adverse, apathetic, and at times aggressive to all they believe. Even though they're mocked, characterized as feeble-minded, and depicted as unkind, they get to share in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And theirs is the kingdom of God, both now and forever. So what I love about this is as you read that, as you think about this, my hope is that you find yourself in the target audience that Jesus is coming to bring this kingdom for. And I got to be honest, this is why I follow Jesus. Like, this is why I even started this journey when I was 7 years old. I'll never forget it. I was 7 years old. We were at a church, new church. My family had moved from Daytona Beach, Florida to Casper, Wyoming, the middle of nowhere. We were at this very big church. My dad was a pastor. He was very important. A lot of people knew him. I was nobody. Nobody knew who I was, why I was there. He was very, very important. I'll never forget, it was one of our first nights at this church. He'd already been there for a couple of months meeting people, and we had a Maundy Thursday service, if you know what that is. It's basically a foot washing service where you follow the model of Jesus, where he himself bent down at the feet of other people and washed their feet in humility and servitude. And I'll never forget sitting in a room, there was all these men. It was all the men of the church, and the church had thousands of people. There were so many men in this room. I'm thinking there's men in this room who are powerful. There's men in this room that are important. There's men in this room that like have prestige and have money. And my dad probably, as a pastor, needs to like make them happy. We're new here. And so I remember sitting down, and my dad went to go get a basin of water, and I watched him look around the room. And I looked around thinking, who is he going to wash the feet of? And instead of locking eyes with anybody else in the room, he just locked eyes with me. And he walked across the room, and he washed my feet. And he told me how much he loved me, how much he valued me. And I thought, if that's what a Jesus like this looks like, it's not the one that goes to the powerful or the important or the people that have it all together. but the one that comes to me, then I'm in. And today, I believe that he's here and he's communicating to you. He's telling you you're the target audience. And what he's asking you to do as the receiver of this, he's just asking you to respond. Would you respond to that? Would you respond to being that kind of person? Would you look for the people around you? If you're today here and you're like, things are going really good, look for people around you that things aren't. But if you're here today and you're in that target audience, I would ask you to respond to Jesus, whatever that looks like. Whether it's thanking him for the kingdom he's given you, whether it's looking for the kingdom he's given you, or whether it's actually accepting Jesus and saying, I want to follow that Jesus for the rest of my life. Whether you've done it before or you need to do it again, to recommit your life to following that Jesus. Today, I'm just asking you to respond to that. Because I think you're in his target audience. If you will, we're going to pray. And again, Charlie's going to be back in the prayer room. John will be back around that area too. They would love to pray with you. If there's things that you're processing in this, that's great. If you want to just go pray by yourself, you're welcome to go back there. They won't bother you. But if you'd like to pray, we would love to pray with you. If you want to recommit into following that Jesus, we'd love to pray with you about that. And as we close today, we're going to just sing about this God who just, his goodness just keeps coming after us and after us and after us. And even though it's not the way the world sees it, that he is still good and we are still blessed. If you would, let's stand together. Jesus, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for just your overwhelming love for us. We thank you that you didn't come for the people that had it all together, that the kingdom that you offer us is not the kingdom that looks like this world. We thank you that you came even for us, the people who are mourning today. You came for the people today who feel weak, the people who feel powerless, the people who feel as though we're poor spiritually, we have nothing to offer you in return, that you came for us. Those of us that are tired today, those of us that are weary today, you came for us. That we are the ones that you are bringing a kingdom to. Today, Jesus, we want to respond to your invitation to us. We want to respond as your target audience to what it is that you have for us. I pray that over the next few weeks, as we dive into your teaching, we wouldn't just do this as a cursory exercise, we would do it as an important exercise to start to see how our lives can be changed and how our world can be changed by being a part of your kingdom, first and foremost. I pray you'd work through us, in us, and even in spite of us. Praise in your name. Amen.